Hey guys, so as you can tell, we're going to go way back now to the 80s, 1987 in fact, to the days of Double Dragon. Now before we talk about Double Dragon, we need to kind of look at its predecessor, which there were two versions of. The first version, which is a Japanese one, which was called Neketsuku ha Kunio Kun. Don't know whether I pronounced that right, but that's basically a schoolboy bully type of scenario. You know, at the beginning of each stage, you know, I think it's like your best friend gets punched in the face quite a few times by a member of a sort of a gang of kids, or you know, a gang of people, and your character would, you know, run on the screen and chase them off, and then you'd get into the zone that you were currently on. So like the first zone I think was like was a train station. The second zone was like a parking lot. You know, the various zones sort of like that, and it was like they were all like closed arenas. There was a bit of walking around, but generally speaking, it was just a sort of square arena where you were locked inside that place, and you had like a set amount of enemies you had to defeat, and then the boss character would come on. But the thing about this game is that at the time, I think this was 1986. This game came out. Most games didn't really have a strong, well, especially fighting games, it didn't have a strong move set. You know, it was all, you know, like games like Kung Fu Master, where you sort of, you walk along a zone and you kick and punch, and there's a bit of jumping perhaps and whatnot, but you know, the control system wasn't really that complicated. A lot of the games in them days, the control system wasn't complicated, but this game had, you know, 3 buttons which were used very well. Because you know, you had your kick and your punch and your jump kicks and stuff like that. You also had the ability to walk in and grab opponents, and you could either you know, knee them, or you know, attack them whilst you had them in the grapple. But you know, you can throw them at other opponents around you. So it's almost like the beginning of zoning. And because, you know, the bosses and the different characters would have different ranges and stuff, so you know, it's very tricky keeping it perfect and keeping your energy meter going. And the English language version was called Renegade, and it's pretty much the same game, just slightly different graphics. You know, it was more about gangs and you know, crime and stuff like that, as opposed to sort of schoolboy stuff. Okay, so we talked about how Renegade sort of had this great move set, and Double Dragon is even more so important, I think. I mean, if you go all the way up through the years, Capcom specifically, I know there were a few other companies who did do some good beat-em-ups, but Capcom specifically through the years, they've made some amazing side-scrollers. If you go all the way up to say like Alien vs Predator, which was one of my favourites as an awesome game, and the 2 Dungeons and Dragons games, you know, Capcom really took what Double Dragon had created really in the 80s, and through the years built slowly on it, and created some amazing games. And those games are like the pinnacle of probably the side-scrolling beat-em-ups for me. Now, me and my best mate at the time, we had Commodore 64s, and we were waiting for Double Dragon to come out. And when it finally came out, we got it. because the game had such an awesome soundtrack, that was the first thing we were listening out for. You know, the title screen loaded finally off the tape, and yeah, the soundtrack, it was pumping, it was banging, you know. Then you start the game up, ooh, there's no music in the game, and that was like really disappointing, especially for a Commodore 64 game, because the Commodore 64 had such a great sound chip, and so many games had some really good sound, like soundtracks for them. I was expecting, you know, Double Dragon to have it, and it didn't. We actually set up a tape recorder, and we loaded the game up to the title screen with the music playing, and sat there, you know, recording the soundtrack from the title screen for like, you know, 20 minutes or something. And then we'd start playing the game, and then as soon as the game started, we'd have the tape rewound, and we'd press play, and we'd have the soundtrack, yeah, you know, we're banging now, it's banging. So that was our little way around the soundtrack problem. It's, I think it's something that people overlook sometimes, is the soundtracks on games, and I think lots of the best games always have a really good soundtrack. I mean, every stage for Double Dragon had a really good soundtrack, or a soundtrack which fitted the mood of the level or whatnot. You know. During my time learning this game, you know, you found lots of glitches. Like most games have got glitches and bugs and silly little exploits and whatever. Double Dragon was rife with them, you know, had quite a few. And there were these two brothers who were playing the game, and they were pretty good at it. They knew loads about the game, and they knew this one really annoying bug. The idea is basically to kill the boss. Hopefully you've left one of the male enemies alive. One of your players gets that character in a full Nelson, and then the player who's free would get one of the whips that Linda had dropped. And for some reason, you can literally whip the character that your friend's holding in the full Nelson, and he doesn't die. So literally, you've locked the game until you release that enemy. But of course, depending on what the machine's set on, you get extra lives for the more score you pick up. So these two guys basically did this thing. One of them was, you know, whipping away at the guy, and he was talking to us about what goes on basically with this manoeuvre, with this trick. So me and my mate walked off, and we come back probably 4 hours later, and you know, both brothers were back there, but they'd swapped round. The guy who was holding the enemy originally, he was now doing the whipping, and you know, the other brother was holding the guy. And I think it got to the point basically where they were ready to finish, you know, and crack on with the game. But they, you know, they both had like something like 7 lives each, and this stupid score. So they sat there for like, you know, they put 20p in the game, you know, 1 credit each, and they'd been on the game 4 hours and got a massive score and 7 lives. And then they killed the last enemy on that stage, got on the lift, and carried on with the rest of the game. So you know, that was quite an annoying thing to have to. You know, because you want to play the bloody game, you have to wait for these two to bloody stop hogging the machine with their 10p each. Now another glitch is on that same zone. It's a silly little one really, but there's a box on the end of level 2, and what you have to do is you kill the boss. You have to make sure that your character, or at least one of the characters, has got the box and is standing on the elevator. And because of the way, like when you end the stage, the computer moves your player into a certain position to get him ready to go to the next stage. You know, it automatically throws the box off the lift and down into the next level. And then once your characters get on the lift and go down, there's the box. And of course the game palette swaps, so the box looks all mashed up and that. But you basically use it, and it's an extra weapon to use, which is a silly little bug, but it's quite a funny bug. Now the next bug, which is a favourite of mine because it's just after you throw the box down, on the left hand side of the screen there's this like void that you can't see, and all you have to do is be facing right but have your back right to the left hand side of the screen. Use the kick so that you grab them and then just throw them, and then they'll just go wee and then fall off the edge of the screen. Save yourself some energy and some time, and then you move on. But that was quite a funny one. And of course another one is how you kill the last boss, basically Willy, earlier than you should be able to, because on the game last level there's like a ledge on the far right hand side of the screen, and he's standing there watching the battle. You basically get your character in the right position, and then the guy will throw you onto the balcony, and then you can beat the boss up and win the game without having to go through all that hassle. So that's another little funny thing that you can do. Okay guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed my recollections of Double Dragon, and I'm now going to leave you with my alternative ending to the game, so I hope you enjoy.